Barakatah Yahweh. Barakatah Yahweh. Shalom, and welcome to another response. This is the second response to No Class Vocab Malone, the 7 questions the Hebrew Israelites avoid. And he went into the book of Deuteronomy 28, again, 52nd verse. And basically, when he read it, he tried to say, how can that apply to the transatlantic slave trade, or something along those lines? Well, the answer to that is it doesn't apply to the transatlantic slave trade, you know, because the curses in Deuteronomy 28 apply mainly during the time of the Romans, when the Romans came in and besieged Jerusalem, and in these times today, you know, and that's very easy, you know. But being that you don't know anything, you know, you don't know no history, you don't know anything, you know, you're making these assumptions that all the curses that are in Deuteronomy 28 all applied during the time of the transatlantic slave trade, which it didn't. You just have to know how to discern where it applies to the Roman siege and when it applies to America. All right, so I'm just going to read that. Deuteronomy 28:52. And he shall besiege thee in all thy gates, until thy high and fenced walls come down, wherein thou trustedest throughout all thy land. A matter of fact, let me start at 49. The Lord, Deuteronomy 28:49. The Lord shall bring a nation against thee from far, from the end of the earth, as swift as the eagle flieth. That was dealing with the Roman Empire, because the Roman armies in the Roman Empire took over that region of land where we were living at, in Israel, Palestine, Jerusalem. It says, a nation whose tongue thou shalt, as swift as the eagle flieth, a nation whose tongue thou shalt not understand. And the symbol of the Roman Empire was the eagle. And we didn't understand their language because they spoke Latin and Greek, you know, and we spoke the Hebrew language. You know, you had certain Israelites that were learned in the Greek tongue, I'm sure the Latin, but for the most part we didn't understand their language, you know, because we had to learn those languages afterwards when we got conquered by our enemies. A nation of fierce countenance, which shall not regard the person of the old, nor show favor to the young, and he shall eat the fruit of thy cattle and the fruit of thy land until thou be destroyed, which also shall not leave thee either corn, wine, or oil, or the increase of thy kind, or flocks of thy sheep, until he have destroyed thee. And he shall besiege thee in all thy gates, until thy high and fenced walls come down, wherein thou trustedest throughout all thy land. And he shall besiege thee in all thy gates throughout all thy land, which the Lord thy power hath given thee. And that happened during 70 AD. It actually began around 66 AD and lasted to around roughly 74 AD, the last strong being Masada. But through that whole time, the main part of that prophecy that was fulfilled was in 70 AD, when the Romans fully took over Jerusalem. That's when they breached the walls. Titus, which was of the Flavian dynasty, he was the one that led that, but the person that actually really besieged the city and took it was an Israelite by the name of Tiberius Julius Alexander, basically an apostate, a devil, or Uncle Tom. Yeah. You know, like Colin Powell or any of those. He probably was one of them top generals in Esau's military today. Ben Carson, any of them sellouts. You know. So I want to hit the first point, which is I'll go to Matthew 20, because it says. And he shall besiege thee in all thy gates until the high and fenced walls come down. Yahushua prophesied that approximately 30-something years before it actually took place. If I'm not mistaken, maybe like 37 years before it took place, give or take a year or two. This is Matthew 24:1. And Yahushua went out and departed from the temple, and the disciples came to him to show him the buildings of the temple. And Yahushua said unto them, see ye not all these things? Verily I say unto you, there shall not be left here one stone upon another that shall not be thrown down. And that's the same thing that happened at the siege. Eventually, the Romans threw down the walls in Jerusalem. That's why to this very day, the site of the temple, where the temple was at, there's nothing left there. The only thing that's left standing is the Wailing Wall, where them gutter rats go to knock their head on the wall that Herod built. That was an extension of the temple which he built. Okay, but that wasn't the actual temple. But the actual temple, there's no remains left of it, because it was all knocked down. All right. Now, the second part of that, which he should have read on to the 53rd verse, back in Deuteronomy 28:53, and thou shalt eat the fruit of thine own body, the flesh of thy sons and of thy daughters, which the Lord thy power hath given thee in the siege and in the straitness wherewith thine enemies shall distress thee. Now, when you go back and jump back to because the two main prophecies of this, the part of the eating of the children and the siege was in Deuteronomy 28, and then the part of the desolation, abomination which maketh desolate, was in the book of Daniel. So those are the two main prophecies that took place during the time of the Roman siege of Jerusalem. So going back to Matthew 24, and matter of fact, before I read that, let me go to this account in the scriptures. This account goes back to the Josephus, right? It says the siege of Jerusalem, AD 70, by Josephus. It says, throughout the city, people were dying of hunger in large numbers and enduring unspeakable sufferings. In every house, the merest hint of food sparked violence, and close relatives fell to blows, snatching from one another the pitiful supports of life. No respect was paid even to the dying, the ruffians, anti-Roman zealots. Searched them in case they were concealing food somewhere in their clothes, or just pretending to be near death. Gaping with hunger like mad dogs, lawless gangs went staggering and reeling through the streets, battering upon the doors like drunkards, and so bewildered that they broke into the same house 2 or 3 times in an hour. Need drove the starving to gnaw at anything. Refuse which even animals would reject was collected and turned into food. In the end, they were eating belts and shoes, and the leather stripped off their shields. Tufts of withered grass were devoured and sold in little bunches for 4 drachmas. But why dwell on the commonplace rubbish which the starving were driven to feed upon? Given that what I have to recount is an act unparalleled in history of either the Greeks or the barbarians, and as horrible to relate as is incredible to hear. For my part, I should gladly have omitted this tragedy, lest I should be suspected of monstrous fabrication. But there were many witnesses of it among my contemporaries, and besides, I should do poor service to my country if I were to suppress the agonies she went through. Among the residents of the region beyond Jordan was a woman called Mary, daughter of Eleazar of the village of Bethsuba. The name means house of hyssop. She was well off and of goodly family, and had fled to Jerusalem with her relatives, where she became involved with the siege. Most of the property she had packed up and brought with her from Perea had been plundered by the tyrant, Simon and John, leaders of the Jewish war effort. And the rest of her treasure, together with such food as she had been able to procure, was being called by the henchmen in their daily raids. In her bitter resentment, the poor woman cursed and abused these extortioners, and this incensed them against her. However, no one put her to death, either for exasperation or pity. She grew weary of trying to find food for her kinsfolk, and in any case, it was by now impossible to get any where you tried. Famine gnawed at her vitals, and the fire of rage was ever fiercer than famine. So, driven by fury and want, she committed a crime against nature, seizing her child, an infant at the breast. She cried, "My poor baby, why should I keep you alive in this world of war and famine?" Even if we live till the Romans come, they will make slaves of us, and anyway, hunger will get us before slavery does. So this was what she was saying during the siege. The Romans hadn't pierced the walls yet. Come, be food for me, and an avenging fury to the rebels, and a tale of cold horror to the world, to complete the monstrous agony of the Jews. With these words, she killed the son, roasted the body, swallowed half of it, and stored the rest in a safe place. But the rebels were on her at once, smelling roasted meat and threatening to kill her instantly if she did not produce it. She assured them she had saved them a share and revealed the remains of a child. Seized with horror and stupefaction, they stood paralyzed at the sight. But she said, "This is my own child and my own handiwork. Eat, for I have eaten already. Do not show yourselves weaker than a woman or more pitiful than a mother. But if you have pious scruples and shrink away from human sacrifice, then what I have eaten can count as your share, and I will eat what is left as well." At that they slunk away, trembling, not daring to eat, although they were reluctant to yield even this food to their mother. The whole city soon rang with the abomination. When people heard of it, they were shuddered as though they had done it themselves. You know, so that is one of the accounts that happened during the siege, where this woman actually ate her child. So when you read in Matthew 24 and 15, it says, "When you therefore shall see the abomination of desolation spoken of by Daniel the prophet stand in the holy place, whoso readeth, let him understand. Then let them which be in Judea flee into the mountains. Let him which is on the housetop not come down to take anything out of his house. Neither let him which is in the field return back to take his clothes." Because this woman, she was fleeing to Jerusalem from this persecution, but she ran right into a siege. It says, "And woe unto them that are with child, and to them that give suck in those days." Why? Because they were going to eat their children. See? And that's the same account that we read of. And Josephus wanted to omit that from the record because it was so hideous. It was such a heinous crime that he wanted to omit it. But he said, at least I should be charged with a monstrous act. He had to put it down. He had to pen it down. And he didn't want to. You know? So that's what happened. Now I just want to read one more scripture here. Now I'm going to read the account again after that. The account of Deuteronomy, the 28th chapter. This is Luke 19 and 41. "And when he was come near, he beheld the city and wept over it." Why? Because he saw the devastation and the siege and the people eating their children in this siege. It says, saying, "If thou hadst known, even thou, at least in this thy day, the things which belong unto thy peace, but now they are hidden from thine eyes." Because they didn't understand what was going to come down the pike. Because everything was hunky-dory, so to speak, at that time. You know, I mean, not hunky-dory, but the siege hadn't happened. And that's the same thing that's going on today. We're warning these people of things to come, but they're not listening. "For the day shall come upon thee that thine enemy shall cast a trench about thee, and compass thee round, and keep thee in on every side, and shall lay thee even with the ground, and thy children within thee. And they shall not leave in thee one stone upon another, because thou knewest not the time of thy visitation." See? And the time of their visitation was that the Lord was going to bring part of the curses in the book of Deuteronomy, the 28th chapter, upon them at that time. You know? And this is Luke 21, and I believe it's 20. It says, "And when you shall see Jerusalem compassed with armies, then know that the desolation thereof is nigh." And that's the siege that Yahushua spoke about that was going to come. And like I said, he prophesied it, what, 30 some about 37 years, if I'm not mistaken, before the actual siege occurred. And that's what Deuteronomy 28 and 52 is dealing with. And Vocab No Class Malone, he may know about this, he may not, but that's why he only read the 52nd verse and didn't read on to the 53rd verse. Deuteronomy 28:52. "And he shall besiege thee in all thy gates until thy high and fenced wall come down, wherein thou trustedest throughout all thy land. And he shall besiege thee in all thy gates throughout all thy land which the Lord thy power hath given thee. And thou shalt eat the fruit of thine own body, the flesh of thy sons and of thy daughters, which the Lord thy power hath given thee, in the siege, and in the straitness wherewith thine enemies shall distress thee. And there's more to it, but that's the main point. The Romans besieged Jerusalem, tore the walls down, but before they even got there, you had people that were eating their children. And that's what that's talking about. Vocab, no class Malone. And like I said, shut the hell up, because you don't know what the hell you're talking about. So with that, we want to say shalom. And Lord's will, your brothers have been edified and sisters have been edified.